Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Across the Park podcast. It's been a while, hasn't it, Matt?
It has, mate. It has, and I tell you what, though, that the Spirit of the Blues, I was nodding there backstage. I absolutely love that tune. even as a fan who isn't a fan of Everton, it's class.
Well, listen. Thanks a lot for joining us, Matt. We're joined by Matt from Talking Wolves tonight, and appreciate your time, Matt. We're going to be previewing the Boxing Day fixture, and like we've just said, then it feels like an eternity. It feels like it's been a pre-season, or we've just gone through from one season to the next, but we haven't, and it's back. Footy's back. Real footy's back. So we'll be previewing the Boxing Day fixture, and yeah, it's an interesting times for you. I guess we're going to start with you guys. New manager, potentially new faces coming in, but what are your feelings? Just off the cuff coming into the Boxing Day fixture.
Honestly, mate, I don't know. I really don't know. It's such a strange time, and I don't think the World Cup break has really helped that. And we've had a real torrid time before the World Cup, and most of the side is underachieving massively. I hate the phrase "too good to go down," but I feel like we are probably one of those teams that everyone bans that phrase about.
You've been there, mate. We were there last season.
I know, and I'd like to think that we've probably got a better squad than you boys. And again, obviously taking form out the window, I'd probably say we have, but it's a real weird time at Wolves. I'm just hoping that this break is seen as a bit of a pre-season, and it gives Lopetegui a bit of chance to instill some of his thoughts, feelings, and instill a bit of confidence in these players. Because honestly, the confidence of these players is shot to bits. We was at Molineux last night for the Carabao Cup game against Gillingham. We're into the quarterfinals now, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful. And you can see Lopetegui's on the sideline saying tempo, move the ball quicker, but it's very passive. And there's so many players there who need a rocket up their arse. I'm just hoping that he gets them in a bit better shape for the Boxing Day fixture, which I trust he will.
I mean, in fairness, how many players has he had to work with in that period, and how you got to wonder how intense can that training possibly be when you're thinking we're bringing players in. There's certain players that are here. I mean, I'm asking you from the core of your team, and I'm not going to ask you right now to go through the starting 11. How many players there do you think fall into that bracket of needing a rocket up their asses, so to speak?
95% of them.
Really?
I'd probably say Neves is obviously our best player, and he's always 8 out of 10 every single week. I'd probably say that Matheus Nunes has been underwhelming, but he's been played in the wrong position by two managers. So not really saying that he should have the rocket up his arse, but Hugo Bueno, who's a young left back who we've brought in from the academy, who's done really well since coming in. He's another player who's performing well, but again, 6, 7 out of 10 every single game. But the rest of them, mate, honestly, you could make a case for replacing all of them. It's that bad at the minute, but I'm hoping that break will change things. The only players who went to the World Cup, I believe, are Hwang, who looks a lot sharper since he's come back, and I think that's given him a bit of a confidence boost because he played well for South Korea. Nunes and Neves, I think they were the only three who went to the World Cup. So he's had the large majority of the squad there, and we have got a few injuries and whatnot. But Lopetegui himself has said, I was very concerned at the levels of fitness of this squad, and it's something that I'd identified during the first part of the season, that every time we get an opportunity where we catch a team out of possession and we can break, we're just so slow on the counter. And I always thought it might be tactically, because teams would just set in and then it's even harder to break down. But it may just be fitness. So that's something he's identified. Another player that I do like as well, mate, who's come in this season is Boubacar Traoré, a midfielder. He looks a good player, and he's one who doesn't need the proverbial rocket up his arse. But the rest, mate, they need to sort it out quick time.
No, fair enough. I mean, you've had, I call it an advantage. You've had the opportunity to get a fixture in before the Premier League game, which you think in this instance, when you've had so much of your squad disjointed, or not being able to play games, has got to be seen as some kind of chance for the managers to look at them. Do you see that as an advantage? You've said it was a bit of I suppose, a downbeat performance against Gillingham. Is that a positive for you to at least get the lads out on the turf? And do you think it gave Lopetegui any food for thought?
I think so, yeah. To get minutes in the legs, we've had a couple of pre-season games as well before, so I think it's given him an idea of who he wants to play or who he shouldn't play on Boxing Day, and you can see that in a competitive fixture, and it wasn't competitive at all. It was Wolves keeping the ball for 90 minutes. Gillingham didn't lay a glove on us, but that's fine. Like, Gillingham would have been happy with that. It was almost like an arc in front of their like back nine, the side to side to side to side. No, not playing vertically. So I think it will have helped us. I don't think it would have boosted the confidence of the players anymore, because they were awful. They were absolutely awful. So I think it'll give Lopetegui a bit of a footing now as to who he will start on Sunday. And I think a few players will pick themselves, but we're on the cusp of making our first January signing anyway. Matheus Cunha from Atletico Madrid. Again, overinflated fee because George Mendes is involved, but unfortunately with the Mendes carousel, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
I mean, it's one of them though, isn't it? Let's be honest. In terms of the is it for your front? Is it not just the end of the option to buy at the end?
No, it's obligation to buy the fee that's been touted around is between 40 to 50 million euros, which is a lot. And even if Wolves go down, they've still got to pay it. So I think the club and it's through it's through the fault of their own. It's been a poor decision after poor decision in terms of hierarchy, people behind the scenes, directors of football, technical directors to keep Bruno Lage on two. Recruitment's been piss poor. It's all unwinding now, and we've reaped what we've sown, and we've been sleepwalking into a relegation battle. I would probably say for 18 months, to be honest, mate. But now they're having to chuck the kitchen sink at it.
Yeah, it's quite sad, that, isn't it? Because you turn back the clock 18 months ago, I guess, maybe 2 years ago, and use with the blueprint, in terms of recruitment from the Portuguese league, in terms of the way that you came up, the way that you did come up from the Championship, and the way you settled in, and the way you were slowly starting to climb. It looked like the blueprint. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to go into the ins and outs of it, because we will be here all night, and I'm sure I'd drive you to an early grave, I'm sure. But where did it all go wrong? If you were to pinpoint something, what was it?
I think Nuno should have gone earlier. I was one of the first fans to call for Nuno's head, and he's still idolised within our fan base, and I get why. Because for 2 or 3 years he was the best thing since sliced bread, and it was thought of very fondly, and rightly so, because he did amazing things. However, I do think that if me and you had got the squad he got in the Championship, we'd probably take him up. But to then come up and get 2 consecutive 7th place finish and go far in the Europa League, like it's extremely commendable. But after that season, you could just tell that it was the COVID season. His heart wasn't in it. He couldn't get the players firing, and he probably stayed 6 months longer. I think Bruno Lage was a risk, and again, it's another Mendes boy, and he got his old mate a job, and he just was never really fit for purpose. We had a really good spell in January last year, or it might have been this year, January this year, where I think we won 5 on the bounce. But apart from that, it was crap, turgid football, and I think the Leeds game at home, I think it would have been March time. We were 2-0 up, coasting, ended up losing the game 3-2, and that was a turning point. And I think Bruno Lage could thank himself lucky that the season ended when it did, because I think another couple of games and he would have had the sack. The problem was the players didn't like him. He was quite an abrasive character, and they've carried on that hump and that form hangover into this season. And they should have bit the bullet and sacked him in the summer. But then for him to carry on, and honestly, mate, you could see it's been absolutely it was dreadful under him this season. So probably the worst football I've ever seen. Fans turning on players, and like Everton are always commonly known for doing that anyway, aren't they? Like Goodison is sometimes a hostile place, love a boo, and that's what Molyneux's been like this season. But to sack him and not have a replacement lined up. Like, they tried to go in for Lopetegui, but his father's been ill. So, and this isn't the first time Wolves have gone in for Lopetegui. before they appointed Nuno, Lopetegui had pretty much signed the contract when we were in the Championship, and then Spain came in for him and said, "Look, I've got to go manage a national team."
Yeah,
Tried
sure.
again. We tried again. Once Lage had been sacked, and he said, "No, it's too soon. From Sevilla, my father's ill," and they finally got the man. I know he's on an extremely lucrative contract, being paid more than any other Wolves manager ever has by some distance. But to sack him and not have a contingency plan in place, I mean, we went from Bruno Lage, and then they tried to get Lopetegui, then they went for fucking Michael Beale at QPR, who had already come to Wolves and said, "Yeah, I want to do it," and then a U-turn, which you can see is quite an indigenous character anyway, because of what he's done with QPR. And then to try and go in for Nuno, it's like that strikes me of a club who don't know what they're doing. So,
I mean, sorry, just back on the Michael Beale one. Do you not think it was a bit of the Bruno Mendes dynamic that's maybe put him off a little bit, or am I?
No, I don't think so. Because I know for sure that he spoke to the club and was like, "Yeah, I'm interested." They'd agreed that, and this is where it differs from Lopetegui. Lopetegui's brought every man and his dog. I think he's got about 10 staff of him, whereas Michael Beale was told you can bring 2 or 3 members of staff, and he was okay with that. And then he went back to QPR and spoke with Les Ferdinand, and I think he shit his pants a little bit and thought, "I don't want to do this." But obviously he's come out and after that saying, like, "I would never leave QPR as part of the project." Quite a disingenuous character, really, mate, to say all that and then 4 weeks later move to Rangers, which I get. Rangers are a massive club and far bigger than Wolves, but you can't come out and give it all those verbals and then do exactly what you said you wouldn't do. But it's football, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But look, let's look forwards, which I'm sure you'll be relieved to do.
I'm trying.
No, it's a massive game for us as well. We certainly haven't been setting the world alight in the last few weeks. You know, we finished we come into the break with 2 defeats on the bounce of Bournemouth. Doesn't get much worse than that, and we got beat by an aggregate of 6 goals. So we're certainly not, bouncing into this Boxing Day fixture. But at the same time, I think some of the players and certainly the manager would have been somewhat relieved for that break, because I think they did need that. They need a little bit of a reset. Listen, it's so hard as fans, isn't it, to know what to expect coming to this. We normally come onto these previews, literally apart from the starting 11, pretty much knowing how we're going to approach the game, what we're going to expect going into it. It is tough. Listen, I think from Everton's point of view, I would expect us to be very much on the front foot, getting the ball forward early. There's not a great deal of surprises in terms of, I don't think, the starting lineup. The one thing which I'm sure you'll relate to massively, which will be a big blow to us, is no Conor Coady.
Yeah,
he for us has been the shining light this season, and I was asking the question before about where did it all go wrong. I'm not suggesting that Conor was the reason for that, but I almost feel like him coming out to the side and then him losing that affinity with the club, that feels like it was a bit of a break for yous. And I don't know, how do you feel? What are your feelings as fans towards Conor Coady? I'm leading you in the wrong direction there, but
I mean, firstly, I love Conor. He's a pleasure to deal with. He's a hero, and will fondly be remembered by Wolves fans for as long as Everton are still in the Premier League next season. He will be an Everton player. But I don't necessarily disagree with letting him go. We play a back 4. Whenever he played in the back 4 for us, and I know obviously he's next to Tarkowski and doing quite well, he looked a little bit shaky, physically couldn't cope with it. So with that in mind, moving back to a back 4, I understood it because his game time was limited. But one thing that you do miss, and it's the same with letting the likes of John Ruddy go, who was a massive part of the dressing room, Romain Saiss, who's just got to a semi or quarter final with the World Cup with Morocco. They're big characters, and you've lost 3 massive characters there. And we did an interview with Romain Saiss. If anyone's interested, it's extremely honest. He was fantastic on Talking Wolves. And he said, look, they've lost too many big characters. There's 3 there. And he was saying, like, I know I'm a big character. Conor, everyone knows Conor. Even John Ruddy was almost like a second assistant manager. You've lost 3 there, and they've not really replaced them. And I think that's something that really goes under the radar from, fans like you and I who've never played the professional game. It's, we don't really think about these things. Yes, I don't think Connor's a fantastic captain, but what I do think he's a fantastic organizer. I think a captain for me, or a leader, is someone who drags you back into the game. I don't think Connor's that player, but in terms of an organizer, he's one of the best. And like you said, he's been excellent for you guys. So hindsight's a wonderful thing. I think that, do we miss him? Well, of course we do, because look at the position we're in. But I don't think that him going was almost like the catalyst. I think it's a smaller problem in a bigger, a smaller cog in a bigger wheel, if I'm honest.
No, fair enough. And look, we will miss him. We'll miss him on at the weekends, and mainly because we've I say the weekends. It's not actually the weekend, is it?
Monday, isn't it? Yeah,
It's Monday, but we'll miss him, because I think from the way that you put it there, he is very much he's a character, and we were lacking in that massively last season. I think, in fairness to Lampard, it's one of the things he did identify is that we needed some of them characters. Those, he is a leader. He's a leader in a different way, but I think for us, we'll definitely miss him, and more so because our backup looks like Yerry Mina and Michael Keane. Now, Yerry Mina is a player, but it's whether he's going to stay fit. Whether he's going to stay fit for the 90 minutes is anyone's guess. And Michael Keane, please God, keep him away from our starting 11. Sorry, because if he starts, then, or if he plays any part, then I think a half fit Jimenez will eat him alive.
Oh, he's half fit anyway, so don't worry about it.
But look, let's come on to the really previewing the game, so to speak. Yeah. I think, look, I fancy us. I do fancy us, just because of the fact that you're going through a bit of a transition. I think there's going to be some different ideas, knocking about. I think the first half for me is going to be as cagey and as dull as a Premier League game as you're likely to see, in my opinion. I think it'll be really, I think both sides, or both sets of players, because we, from our point of view, we're not blessed with goals. We're not, and I think, I think a new manager coming in on your side, I think it'll be a little bit of a mix of ideas. He'll probably be trying to push his way of playing. I think it might be tough for you guys as well. I fancy us to nick it. I think I'm trying to. It's tough to know whether Dominic Calvert-Lewin's going to be leading the line. I think that's going to be a massive, decisive, element of the game, because what we've lacked since Dom has not been in the side, and has been replaced with Neil Maupay, which, Jesus Christ, something that was. But I think, we need a number 9. Everton, that's what Everton are about almost. We've always had that big number 9 for years, whether it's Duncan Ferguson, whether it's Romelu Lukaku, Kevin Campbell, James Beattie. We've been at our best when we've had a big number 9. I can't believe it. James Beattie was the last name to come out there, but Dominic Calvert-Lewin, when he's been fit, like it or not, for Evertonians, it is a massive asset to us. If we can get him on the pitch, it's a different ball game. I don't think it'll be the case. It'll probably be Neil Maupay leading the line again, and in that sense, it's going to be a different route to goal for us. I fancy the players who've come back from the World Cup to be influential for us. Onana, before he went away, was a big signing for us, and he looks like a player who's gonna grow as he, the longer he spends in the Premier League, and he's threatened to score for a long time. He's always getting on the end of stuff, but isn't quite getting there. I fancy him to get one on Monday. I was going to say at the weekends again then. If not, Anthony Gordon. We went out to Australia, Everton, in the break, and he got a few goals out there. He was a player who, again, started the season really well. Chelsea threatened to buy him. Looked like he was gonna get that big move, scored a few goals, and then went off the boil. I think he's someone who's probably going to want to puff his chest out, coming back and to show that he's the player that Chelsea were threatening to spend that money on. So I think one of those two would be the players that I think will be prevalent for us. What's your thoughts, Matt? How do you see the game going? Do you think you win?
Honestly, I don't know. I think the new manager bounce, if it is a thing, may have some influence on the game.
Fair enough.
I think that Wolves will know what Goodison Park will be like if you don't take the game by the scruff of the neck and we frustrate you. And it'll be your home crowd will be like our 12th man, because it's always the case. Like, as Everton fans, you expect a lot, and over the last few years, it's not been delivered. So I think Lopetegui will look to frustrate you guys and then try and pick you off on the counter. In pre-season, we've been switching between a 5 and a 4 at the back as well. So I don't even know how we're going to line up. It's been like a 3-4-3 or a 4-2-3-1. But I honestly, I don't know. For me, it's a must not lose. I would take a point, because a point, whilst we're still learning what he wants to do and without his players, because I think they're going to bring in 5 or 6 in January, including Kuna. So it's going to be big turnaround. I think he'll just look to steady the ship, make us hard to beat, and then go from there. So I'd take a goalless draw, if I'm honest, mate, because it keeps us in and amongst it. I think if you get 3 points on us, so what's that? Take it to 5 or 6 points. So yeah. I know there's still 60 odd points left to play, but I think if you just steadies the ship, that's the big problem, because, mate, we're leaky as fuck. Kilman and Collins started the season really well and have been absolutely dreadful. We got Tomato and Johnny at right back, who are having a competition as to who can be dropped the most this season. So honestly, there's only Bueno, who's a 19-year-old at left back, who's actually playing all right. So that's something they're going to address in January. I think you guys are in for Wan-Bissaka, the same as us. So that could be an option. We definitely need a centre half though. But yeah, I'd take a 0-0, mate.
Yeah, do you know what? I mean, I'm predicting a 1-0, so I'm hoping for a 1-0. I'd take a 0-0. I really would. I think we can't get beat by yous. I'm going to say the weekends again. We can't get beat by yous on Monday. We really can't.
I think if you do, it piles the pressure on Lampard. I used to live up your neck of the woods, so I've got a lot of mates who are Toffees, and the older generation are. Yeah, he's good. He's brought us back together, and the younger generation he's shy. Get rid of him. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I'm probably somewhere in the middle. Like, whether you call me older or younger, I'm definitely somewhere in the middle. I definitely agree with the fact that he's brought the fans closer to the club, the players. But there's definitely a lot to be desired as well. There's a lot to prove there. So every result at the moment is important to him, and he'll be just trying to crawl to that January window so he can get a few more faces in that are, I guess, more to his liking. But it'll definitely be an interesting one. I think there's probably not many teams that could be so, I guess, unpredictable going into this first game as us two, because you really don't know. We've been up and down. You guys, obviously, new manager, new way of playing, but it'll definitely be interesting. Matt, I know you've got lots to do. You've got loads more previewing to do.
I know.
We really appreciate you joining Across the Bar podcast, and we hope to have you again. Any of our followers, please follow Wolves Talks if you're looking for any engagement on the Wolves side of things. Certainly, we'll be looking to engage with you again in the future.
Of course, mate.
Please get in touch. If you're ever coming to Goodison, come and have a pint with us, mate. We'd love to.
I go up every single year because, like I said, I've got loads of mates up there. But for some reason, I don't know if it's because of the strikes. There's no trains on.
Shocking.
Yeah, there's no trains on, and the coaches are leaving at 8:30 on Monday, and I'm still going to be with pissed from Christmas Day. So 100%. I thought I'll spend some time with my family. I don't really want to, but it's Christmas Day.
No, I don't blame you, Matt. I'd definitely be in the same boat. But look, anytime, mate, please give us a shout.
Mate. Yeah, I've enjoyed it, mate.
No worries, I'd say best of luck, but I wouldn't mean it.
No, same here.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, mate.
Thanks a lot.